Imagine this. You're me, an everyday kind of guy, suddenly caught in a web of secrets so thick you could slice it with a witty retort. There I was, turned into an accidental master of espionage without a single spy class under my belt. My life turned into a suspense-filled comedy, each day another episode where I play the unlikely hero. Think MacGyver, but with more Wi-Fi issues and less hair. Armed with just my wits and a collection of too smart for their own good gadgets, I found myself navigating a maze of secrets. Every beep of a device wasn't just a notification, it was the sound of the next plot twist. I wasn't just eavesdropping, I was tuning into a live broadcast of my own life, turning into a sitcom where the laugh track was stuck on suspense. Here I am, trying to piece together clues with the stealth of a cat on a hot tin roof. You'd find yourself chuckling as I bumble through, setting up cameras like I'm staging a YouTube prank gone wrong. So buckle up, because if my life were a film, you'd be gripping your seat 1 minute and slapping your knee the next. Curtain up, spotlight on, and let the chaos commence. It was a late day in the week when I first found out that my world was not as I thought. I came home from work early. Marge, my wife, was upstairs. I thought I'd go up and say hi. As I went down the hall, I could hear her on the phone. Getting closer, I caught the end of the chat. Yes, love, today was good. I liked it. Since when does she like work? A room's door was a bit open, so I looked in. She was taking off her clothes while on her phone. She stepped out of her skirt and put it on the bed. She had on black lace pants I had never seen before. I was about to enter, but then she said, I got to hang up. He might come home. I need to shower first. I watched. She put the phone to charge and took off her shirt. She had on a matching black lace top back to me. She took off the pants, threw them away. The top went next as she moved to the shower. She stopped by a mirror. From where I stood, I could see her in the mirror. What I saw made me shake. I felt sick. In the mirror, her left chest had a love bite. My wife had a mark, and it was not from me. She saw it, too, and grabbed her chest, touching the mark. Oh, no, she said. Now I have to hide this. She went to shower while I cried outside our room. I'm David Atkinson. Marge has been my wife for 23 years. We have 2 kids, Julia, 19, and Tom, 18. Marge works part-time at the local Air National Guard base. I'm a chemical engineer. Up until a few minutes ago, I thought we had a great life together. But now it seemed like my wife needed someone else to make her happy. After calming down a bit, I went into our bedroom and tried to check her phone for the last call she got. But to my surprise, her phone had a password. We never used passwords before and would often use each other's phones. I realized it had been a couple of months since I last used her phone. It just never happened. I picked up her shirt and smelled it. There was a strange scent of aftershave on it that I didn't know. Going to the laundry basket, I picked out her undies and bra. The undies were as you'd expect, without any evidence of cheating. I thought for a bit. I got the digital video camera from the kitchen and a Ziploc bag. Going back to the bedroom, I put the undies in the bag and stuffed it in my pocket. I made a note to buy a kit to check for signs of someone else and send it to my work. The video camera went on my dresser, aimed at the mirror. I turned it on to record and hid it with one of my ties. It was pretty well hidden as I went back downstairs. I saw her laptop was on, so I tried to check her emails. No luck there, too. She had a password on it. We never had passwords on our computers either, which was another clue. Then I left. I really wanted to talk to her about it, but I was too upset. Plus, I had no real proof. She could just say it wasn't true. No, I needed solid proof, and I wanted to find out who the other guy was so I could make him pay. I called my wife's phone, knowing she was still in the shower, and told her I was held up at work and would eat later after hiding her undies in the garage. I went to the nearest bar to think and feel bad. It was a quiet old bar next to a worn-out motel. It had okay food, cheap drinks, and was a place to be alone. When I walked in, I saw a new girl working the bar. Nice, I thought. I hope she can mix a gin and tonic. And she could. Her name was Mary. It was her first day. And I liked chatting with her. She was a mom, had been married once, and was trying to get by. I got home around 11 p.m. The house was quiet. Everyone was asleep. I went to our room to change. As I was putting on my robe, Marge woke up. "You're late tonight." "I'm sorry to wake you," I said. "Had a long day?" Then I told her, "I'll make it up to you if you've missed me." She yawned and said, "I'm just too tired now. Maybe in a day or two." "It's a date," I said. "I'm going to wind down for a bit, then join you." "Good night." She said night, and I grabbed the recorder. I went down to my computer and plugged in the camera. I noticed that we went from being close a lot to just once a week. And in the last month, only on Saturdays. I skipped the video to when the bathroom door opened. She checked herself in the mirror closely. I saw a mark. She picked out pajamas for later. Odd, since she usually sleeps without clothes. I saved the video and cleaned the camera. After hiding it, I went to bed. On my way, I turned the heat up. Let's see if she likes her pajamas now. Marge was either asleep or pretending when I got into bed. On Thursday, I got up early to leave. I was too mad and needed time to cool off and think. I called work to say I'd be in late. Then I rang George. He'd know what to do. We'd been pals for a long time. A few years back, George found out his wife was not true to him, and they split. We hung out a lot then, talking it through. Now George has moved up in the Air National Guard and looks after base safety. After his split, he dived into work and climbed the ladder fast. His last job made him the head of keeping the place safe. When I called, he picked up quick. "Hey, how are you doing?" he asked. "Not great," I said back. "I think Marge is seeing someone else." "Oh man, David, that's rough," he said. "I'll help, however I can. Want to come by now?" "Yeah," I said. He added softly, "I hope you're wrong, but you're usually right. Let's find out." I went over and we sat down to talk. After an hour, we had a plan. George gave me 5 small sound recorders like the ones he used before. I went home. Marge's car wasn't there. I put 4 recorders in the house and kept one for her car. The place felt colder than before. The heat was turned down. Maybe Marge felt hot last night. I looked around her closet. There were new clothes I hadn't seen, bold ones. Maybe she bought them but then felt shy about wearing them out. At the back of a drawer, I found lingerie that was new to me. Some were torn like they were ripped off. That made me feel really bad. I stared at them for a long time. Then I went to work, leaving at 3. I rang Marge's cell and left a message saying I was held up at work and wouldn't make it home till late. When I finally got home that night, I sneaked the last voice bug into Marge's car and then hit the hay. I made sure to hit the sack after Marge on Friday night, too. She was either out cold or playing possum. I checked the voice bugs that evening but got nothing juicy. Early Saturday, as usual, I fed the kids their breakfast so Marge could sleep in. Sunday would be my turn to snooze late. After the kids scampered off to watch TV, I cleaned the kitchen and zapped Marge's breakfast in the microwave. Next, I hooked up the Allen cable to my laptop, logged in, and cut off the Wi-Fi. I left Marge a note by the microwave saying I was outside and then got to work in the yard. About 2 hours later, Marge came out fussing about her laptop not picking up the Wi-Fi. We went inside. I tried my laptop, acting like it was fine, and said we should check hers. She seemed edgy and stuck close by her laptop and me. I faked some tech moves until she got bored and drifted off. Every time she left, I snuck a memory stick into her laptop and set up a spy program. The moment she left again, I programmed it to log every key hit, snap a picture of the screen every 30 seconds, track all websites she visited, and grab her emails, even the ones thrown out or sent. Once she wandered off again, I fixed the Wi-Fi from my laptop, checked her laptop was online again, and went to show her. I told her the hard drive was a mess. I showed her the cleanup tool and said to hit this button when she was done for the day to let it run all night. That way, my spy tool would also send me all it caught. She wrapped her arms around my neck, gave me a kiss, and with a wink said, "Thanks, big guy, how can I pay you back?" I grinned, gave her a light tap on the backside, and said, "How about you wash my car?" She looked like she was expecting something else. I pecked her cheek and joked, "Just kidding, back to work for me." She seemed puzzled as I left, back to cutting the grass. I knew I was being foolish, not tonight, but I couldn't let her think I was onto her without any proof. I had to act normal for now, so I decided to work hard this day and be too tired for anything at night. We watched movies with the kids later. Marge cuddled up close, and it felt nice. She got a bit playful a few times during the movies. When the second movie was almost over, I took the chance to grab a drink and sneaked one of Marge's Xanax, thinking it would knock me out in about 45 minutes. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, Marge had to wake me up. I said I was beat from working all day and headed to bed. Marge looked let down, especially when the kids wanted her to stick around for another movie. I passed out, not knowing when she'd join me. Sunday is my day to sleep in, yet I was up at 5 a.m. I didn't want to be there when Marge got up, avoiding any early surprises, and it was time to check on her stuff. I turned off her alarm as I left and fired up my computer. It hit me that skipping out on SEC would make her suspicious for sure. I booted up the keylogger program and put a password on my computer. I found about 500 emails in a secret folder, so I started digging in. The keylogger showed the oldest emails first. I was looking at messages 6 months back. Among them, I found 2 from someone named Bill Perez. He had his own web name, but the chats were about her work. Maybe they worked together. Or maybe this is the guy I found an email from, sent 4 months back with the title, "I read it." It wasn't too bad, but it felt like this guy was trying to win her over. He got his name on the internet. A quick look showed he had no website. I sorted by date and saw 6 from Old Willie, sent yesterday. No shock, Marge was glued to her laptop. She was scared I'd open her emails. I opened the newest one and read as my world fell apart, starting from the end where she was mad at him for leaving marks on her and how tough it was to hide them from me. He just said, "Tough luck, get over it and forget your husband." Her mad reply came 14 minutes after. One part was telling. She said, "I know you don't love your wife, but I love my husband. I don't want to hurt him or our marriage. It's bad enough I've not been close with him much. Now with your marks, I can't even let him see me without clothes. I'm not seeing you this Wednesday." Interesting, but it changed nothing. The next 2 were him saying sorry, saying he'd be nicer and offering a trip somewhere sunny if she could sneak away. He said he loved her a lot. The last one from her was glad he got her point. She would only go on trips with her husband and was skipping their Wednesday meetup. She thought it'd take a week for the marks to go away and then she'd spend time making things right with her husband. Other emails told more. They had been together for 2 months. They met at a local hotel where his work had a room for sales guys to use. One email told her how to get there. It said the company had a room, 187, for 2 years now. It was the motel across from the bar I was at before. Then a new email came from him. It was an answer to one she sent last night, and it made my head spin again. She had sent him a message saying she needed to see him this week and they could meet Wednesday at 1 p.m. She asked him to be soft this time. His reply was all sweet talk, saying how great she was and how he would make it nice for her. Right then, I knew they both had to face what they did. I needed to plan and would need George's help. I sent the emails that could help to George and started to make breakfast. Marge came down around 9:30 and was glad I let her sleep. I told her it was okay since I went to bed early last night. She hugged me and said, "Don't work too hard today. I need you tonight." I didn't listen to the last part and told her I just had a bit more work to do. I moved away and said I should start. As I left, I saw her look worried. She tried to hide it when she saw me looking. I told her to call if she needed anything. She weakly said okay. I was cleaning the garage when George called. First, he asked if we could talk. I went outside and said yes. He told me he had read the emails and felt bad for me. I told him I felt awful, but at least now I knew. "You know, but you don't have solid proof yet," he said. "I thought I could try to get photos of her at the motel. We can do much more if you want. You just can't use that in court," he said. "Tell me more." He had looked into bad stuff at that motel before. The owner was a good guy who didn't like bad folks or drug users there. "I'll call him tomorrow and get a key to that room," he said. "It's for my work I'm doing now. We need to know when Perez isn't there so we can put in secret cams. It's how I caught my ex," he told me. "Yes, I want that," I said strongly. "To catch her and to get him too. Can you dig up stuff on him?" "First thing Monday, I'll start on that. Let's aim to set up the cams Monday or Tuesday. We'll need about an hour," he said. We spoke a bit more. George said the gear starts with sound and moves and sends stuff to a receiver within 100 feet. He planned to hide the receiver in a service room. To get the data, I just had to drive near the motel and turn on the receiver in my car. The first receiver also sent stuff out. On my word it would send me its data, then clear its memory. Getting a full day's video might take 2 hours. The rest of Sunday just passed. I thought of just going to sleep 10 minutes after a quick time in bed. Then I decided not to. That night when she came to bed, I acted like I was asleep already. She checked once, then turned over and slept. I woke up early Monday and left before anyone else, calling my job Monday morning. I said I wouldn't come in today and went to George's. He told me he'd talked to the motel manager and got some scoop. Turns out our guy is seeing at least 3 ladies in his hideout. He must think he's smart using a full-time room, but it's dumb to use the same spot. George also heard the manager say Perez was a bother to the staff. The final bit of news was that Perez worked in the room a few times a week, but he hardly ever came before 11 a.m. "All right, let's go," said George. We put our gear into George's van and got to the motel in 10 minutes. George knocked on the manager's door and told him I was helping him with some work and might be around at times. The manager, named Kevin, was okay with it, but said he didn't want any bad stuff going on at his place. He gave George the key to the room and showed us on a map where it was. There was a utility room not too far away, about 50 feet. George asked for the key to that room too and Kevin made one for him right away. Then, Kevin called Perez's room to check if he was there. No answer. We think Kevin drove the van close to the room. George knocked a few times, then used the key to get in. No one was there. I froze for a second, thinking about my wife with another man in that bed. But then I started to help out. In less than 2 hours, we had set everything up and made sure it worked. As we were about to leave, I saw a spot for a laptop on the table. "George, look. He keeps his laptop here. If I can get to it when he's gone, I can put a tracker on it," I said almost too loud. "Maybe he leaves it when he goes to eat," said George. "I'll watch this place all day if I have to," I said back. "First, I want to track his car so we don't get caught off guard." "Don't rush things," he said. "Got it? We can't mess this up. Let's go now. How about that place across the lot for lunch? Their food's good and they've got a new barmaid. She's nice and easy to chat with." "I'm in. I'm starved," said George. The bar was empty when we went in. I walked in first. "Mary, the barmaid, saw me, gave a big smile and waved. Then George came up behind me. Mary looked shocked. She let the towel fall, stopped cleaning, and walked right to us, not minding me. She hugged George tight and said, "George, it's so good to see you." He hugged her back and said, "Mary, I've been thinking of you. Good to see you're doing better." She stepped back but still held him. "Not all good yet but getting there. You helped a lot from far away." I tried to introduce George but they both laughed. Mary let go of George, took my hand and said, "I liked you since we first met. Knowing you're George's friend means a lot." I smiled. "He can be a pain but he's all right." She smiled back. "George and I go back a bit but I've never thought of him as a pain. Must be a guy thing." Even as Mary served drinks to others she kept coming back to chat with us. She shared she was working hard to save for nursing school in 5 months. By 2 in the afternoon George and I were the only ones left. I mentioned how quiet it was and Mary said it's always like this and she doesn't get tips, which is tough, but she uses the time to study. Then smiling at us both she said, "But talking to you guys is much nicer." We talked more until Mary suddenly looked serious and said to George, "George the first I'm going to tell him." George just looked at her calmly. She turned to me. "If we're going to be friends I don't want secrets between us. You might not like me after I tell you. I get it, but I won't hide who I am. I don't want you hearing it from someone else." I saw her reach for George's hand. She held it tight and said, "Let me tell you how I met George. He caught me. He dragged me to a dirty cell in this cold, dark place he had. I fell apart when I saw the cell. He didn't care. He just pushed me in and started to close the door. Then he stopped and watched me cry. He yelled at me, saying how I was messing up my life and how dumb I was acting. Then I saw he wasn't yelling that I was no good, which I was. He was saying I was hurting myself. No one ever told me that before, but I hurt him then. And I lost it. I fell on that awful dirty bed and cried hard. George sat by me and said just one word. She looked at me with tears and said, "He asked me why?" Just that. Looking at George, she went on, "For the first and last time in my life, I told someone everything, crying out of control at times. I don't know how long it took. George must have sat there for hours. When I was done, he just looked at me for a very long time. Then he got up, gently touched my shoulder, and then locked me in that cell. He left me there for 14 hours. I saw no one, heard nothing. I was cold and hungry the whole time, coming down from a high. At last he came back and said it was time to see the judge. Usually you get to clean up and wear a new jail suit before you go to court. Not me. He made me go like I was. The defense didn't say a word. The judge was going to send me to jail when George stood up and asked to speak to the court. I'll never forget what he said or how he looked in his full dress. I can remember every word to this day. But what's important is that he told the judge that sending me to jail wasn't right. He wanted me in rehab. The judge and the attorney were surprised for a reason. I was deep in trouble, hooked on bad stuff and caught for things I did, which George said I did. And then, Tough George was on my team. The judge thought a bit, then gave me a chance at 90 days in rehab with 4 long years waiting if I messed up. I went for it. Looking at George the first said, "I've stayed away from the bad stuff since George caught me." Looking at us, she said softly, "George, David, I don't walk the streets now, but I still do what I did. It's the only way I can save for school and take care of my kid. But if you two don't want to talk to me anymore, I get it. Sorry, George." Then I felt hugs from both sides. George said, "As long as you fight, I'm with you and you will make it. I know you." I added, "Mary, I'm happy we met and glad to call you a friend." It was good we were in a quiet corner of the bar. Mary just cried, holding us. Come Monday night, Marge showed up at 5:30 with Chinese food. She tried to kiss me, but I just took the bags and said, "Great, we're all hungry. When I looked back, she seemed worried. I said, "Why don't you change and I'll set things up?" She turned white and I began to get plates ready. She tried to say something, but stayed quiet. I was still mad about her lie last night. Dinner was quiet and the kids felt it, but stayed silent. Marge didn't eat much, but I made sure I did. Marge tried to talk, but I hardly paid attention. Then I knew I was acting dumb. Being mad now was giving me away and I didn't want her to end things before I found proof. I shook my head and said, "Sorry, everyone. I had work stuff on my mind and it followed me home. Let's try again." How was everyone's day? We talked through dinner, trying to act normal. I made sure to smile at Marge a few times and listen to her. Marge went to sleep before me. I turned the heat up a bit. After an hour, I listened to the voice tapes, but found nothing interesting. I went into our room. It felt hot, around 77 degrees. I got ready for bed, laid down, and faced away from her. She said softly, "Night, honey." Without turning, I said, "Why are you in that thick top? It's hot in here." She paused, then said, "I'm just cold, that's all." I pushed a bit more. I turned to her and hugged her. She hugged me back, but she was all sweaty. "Are you sick?" I asked, worried. She said, "I don't think so. I've just been cold at night." I pulled her close and said, "I know ways to make you warm." She tensed and said, "David, I'm sorry. I'm just too tired." I turned away and said, "It's okay, Marge." She moved closer and said, "I'm too tired tonight, but how about Wednesday? It'll be a light day for me. I'll make it up to you then." I just murmured, "It's fine." After a bit, she went back to her side. It was awkward Tuesday morning. I left for work as usual. George told me he put a GPS on Perez's car last night and gave me the site to track it. I saw that Perez was across town. I decided it was time to check the bedroom voice recorder. I told my office I'd be back in a few hours and went home. Marge heard from her best friend Ashley Monday morning. Right away, Marge told her she had an amazing time this weekend. Ashley was excited. "Did you hook up with Will this weekend?" Ashley wanted to know. I wondered if her man Mike knew and kept it from me. That jerk. No, I wanted to be with David this Sunday night, but it didn't happen. I planned to be with him Saturday night like we usually do, but he was out working all day and was too beat, Marge said. "Is David better in bed than Will?" Ashley fired back. "Yes, being with David is always better," Marge said. "Then why are you with Will?" she asked, sounding amused. "It's different," Marge said. "David loves me. I feel so secure with him. Will just hits it raw. It feels good, but I never want David to treat me that way. But both are good. I know it sounds weird, doesn't it? It does to me, girlfriend. It's the rush, the raw heat, spreading your legs for someone special. I know, that's why I started seeing Brian Sears last year. Special, I know, that's why I started seeing Brian Sears last year." Then she laughed. "Plus, he's got that big size," Marge laughed too. "And yeah, that's why you stopped with him. That big size made you walk funny. God, I was always sore after being with him. It's gentle, but it's a thick one. It's fun to play with and just look at and go, damn." Then Ashley added, "Hey, next month Mike will be gone for 5 days. I think I'm going to let Brian have me on the first day. I'll be sore for the next few days, but should be okay when Mike gets back." "Really? Damn, I thought you were over him." "I was. Since last year, I thought Mike was suspecting something, but Brian and I keep in touch. With Mike away for 5 days, I thought I'd treat myself." "You have to tell me everything," Marge said. Ashley replied, "Only if you spill on Wednesday with Will and David. All the spicy details," Marge said. "Deal?" Then Ashley asked, "How's your boob?" Marge said, "The mark is getting lighter, but I can't let David see it for a few more days. I've been changing in the bathroom and wearing flannels at night. He hasn't noticed, Ashley asked. Be careful. Did he say anything about no sex? No, but I need to handle that. She laughed and said, I never got to do this before, but I want to be with David on Wednesday night. I never had two guys in one day before, said Ashley. I've done it a few times. It's really exciting. Just make sure you get a cleanup kit before you go to see David. It cleans deep. Marge said she would. Then they said, bye. No way, Marge. Mean girl. And Ashley was mean, too. Should I tell Mike and maybe ruin his life? That's just bad. Then I thought he might be mad for not telling him. He'd want to know like me. I'll give him this tape after I deal with Paris. The next important call was from Ashley again this morning. Their talk sounded different from Monday. Marge called and said, Hi, Ashley. Ashley noticed Marge's mood and asked what was up. David saw that I wore thick pajamas and shut the door to change. He asked about it when we went to bed. I said I was cold, but Ashley, it was so hot. I sweated all night in those thick pajamas. I don't think he bought it, but he didn't say more. Then David wanted to be close, but I couldn't let him see the marks. I had unplugged the nightlight on Sunday, but David fixed it, so I said no again. He was upset. I tried to fix it by saying we could be closed this Wednesday, but he didn't seem to care. We just lay there so far apart. And worse, I kept thinking about being with Will, not David. I saved that file. I didn't need to listen more. I looked up how to check for other men and ordered a kit to my office. Next I went to the motel. Perez's car was there. It was lunchtime. I went to the bar. Mary wasn't at work, but from my window I saw Perez sitting in a booth looking over a menu. It felt like the right time. So I walked over to his motel door and knocked. No one answered, so I used my key to get in. I didn't look at the bed this time, but went straight to the other room. There, his laptop was open, showing a QuickBooks page. I took out my thumb drive, plugged it into his laptop, and set up a keylogger program. I didn't snap any screenshots this time, but made sure to track all emails, all sites visited, every key press, and all data, including the accounting ones. If he was up to no good, I was going to catch him. Then I turned on his remote desktop thing and checked the motel's Wi-Fi for the right port, and it was open. Next, I went to a site that lets you use a basic version of remote control software for free, and made an account with his domain name. I put the software on his laptop so I could access it from anywhere and see his desktop on my screen. The site keeps track of IP addresses, showing it was set up from the motel's network. I hid the icons from the desktop and start menu. I brought the QuickBooks page back up and left the room fast. Heading back to the office, I put in a few hours of work and got home feeling pretty good. I was all smiles and helped the kids and Marge. She seemed worried when I first arrived, but calmed down after seeing me act normal. Around 10, she said it was bedtime. I told her I had to finish up some work and would head to bed later. Great, see you in the morning, she said. Yeah, great, I thought. Sleep well for your lover tomorrow. I had tons of data to sort through, the recordings, files from Willie's and Marge's computers, and the phone data, but not tonight. I put the car recorder back in Marge's car after I took the data. She might have been asleep or just acting when I slipped into bed. I stayed as far away from her as I could and tried to sleep, thinking about what would happen tomorrow. Marge was up before me the next morning, which was okay by me. My stomach was in knots because I knew she was going to cheat on me again today, and I would have to watch the tape of her with another man. When I went to the kitchen, she was almost done making breakfast. She was all dressed up for work, too. You're just in time, dear, and good morning, she said. I made a sound and went for the coffee. After I took a couple of sips, I looked at her and saw she was confused. Sorry, I'm still half asleep, I said. She said, okay, you're just not yourself in the mornings. Now you know how I feel most days. I didn't say anything, just sat down and drank. The kids came in, and she started to put food on plates. I usually help her when she cooks, but not today. I didn't look at her, but noticed from the corner of my eye she kept sneaking peeks at me. She stopped and looked at me hard. I didn't see it, I was looking at the door. Right before I left, she blocked my way, looking worried, and said softly, "David, is something wrong?" I looked at her blankly and said, "Not that I can tell." Then I hugged her tight with love. She sank into my hug, relieved, and said, "I'm glad, I was worried." I said, "I love you and can't think of life without you, and there's no one else I want to be with." I paused, then said, "I hope you feel the same about me." She got stiff and made a crying sound, holding on to me tighter, and said, "Of course I do." Then she whispered, "And I plan on making you really happy tonight." I pulled away hard and left without a second look at her. I drove to the motel and started downloading the data as I waited for Marge to head to work. I got back home just after 9 in the morning. I spent all my time in the parking lot, lost in thought about how to face the day. How was I supposed to act normal around her? What was I going to do? How could I bring myself to watch the video of her with another guy? Getting the data from the bugs took some time. I roamed the house with no direction as it transferred. I just couldn't see myself talking to Marge tonight, or even worse, sharing a bed with her. I began with his emails. After a few hours, I picked up on a few basic things. He ran 3 companies that bought stuff cheap and sold it to the local military base, some big companies, and the government. It looked like he was cheating with 5 other women besides my wife, the sneaky jerk. He had a bunch of emails about product quality and details. I saved a few emails to look into later. Not much yet, but it was a beginning. Next, I copied his 3 QuickBooks company files and used a keylogger to find out his usernames and passwords. Didn't get much from that either. I'm no expert in finances. I did notice in the expenses that he had 6 company cards. He even wrote down the card number and the notes for each. Listening to his phone chats was a long job, but it ended up being really useful. I started to connect some dots between some emails and his phone talks. One call was from someone in a busy shipping department. He mentioned a problem with the last order because it had repeating serial numbers. Even worse, all new orders had to have unique serial numbers. Perez was mad about that and made it clear he was not happy. The guy on the phone said the new checking software would catch all sorts of problems, and they had to be careful. After Perez hung up, he went online and bought 2 fancy printers and stuff for them. Then a guy who sells things called him. This guy, Willie Boy, talked in circles, but finally said, "Getting okay to sell stuff takes ages, but I like you and can help." The big boss of buying at the base listens to his shopping helper. "I can get the helper on your side, but you need to pay. For $5,000 in cash, you can sell $100,000 worth of goods to the base. You can even up your prices a bit. It'll be cheaper next time." The guy sounded less sad then. "Okay. How do I give you the money?" Perez asked. "I'll tell you when you're ready. In 2 days, they'll pick your bid." "Thanks. I'll call back soon." Next, he got a call from someone who works with buying things at the base, the place where Marge works. This guy told Perez what prices other sellers had offered for some deals. Besides that, he got 4 more calls that mattered. One was from my wife. That call was the same one I heard from the car bug. Taking a break, I thought it was time to sort things out. So I made folders on my flash drive for videos, sounds, info, and other stuff. I put everything into these folders and made a copy. Then it was time to call George. He felt bad for me for a bit. Then I said I needed his help in his job role. He was all ears. After I told him everything, he said, "Great. I can't use what you found in court. But it helps with what I was already checking. We've been eyeing the shipping and receiving area for some time. Stuff goes missing, sometimes whole loads. And the records don't show anything wrong. I needed to check the storage because some items had the same ID and were not good enough. I told him we had to look at this now. I mentioned I had to leave the house before she came back. We can meet later at your place, he suggested. No, let's meet at my flat at 3 p.m., I said. I didn't want others to know yet. I'll cook and we can drink. You're not driving. You'll drink, George said in a strong tone. I agreed and we ended the call. That was my plan then. I'd spend the evening with George getting drunk. By the time I got home, Marge would be asleep. And the next day, I could say a bad hangover kept me from her. I agreed and we ended the call. That was my plan then. Spend the evening with George getting drunk. By the time I got home, Marge would be asleep. And the next day, I could say a bad hangover kept me from her. My heart sank. It was nearly 1 p.m. and she was meeting him soon. I tried calling Marge but only got her voicemail. Maybe she didn't want to talk. I left her a message that I was with George and would be coming home late. I then went back to look at video files from Monday to now. What I saw first shocked me. Early Monday, a woman came in with her own key. The man hugged her tight and they kissed a lot. Then they went to the bed. I saved that video. On Tuesday, he was with a cleaner for a short time. Later that day, another cleaner came by. He gave her money. She did things in return. I saved those videos too. It was time to see George. I made extra copies for him. George picked me up and we spent about 2 hours looking at what I found. Then we went to a bar. It was about 1 a.m. when we left but I don't remember much after that. On Thursday, I woke up at about 9 a.m. The house was empty, no Marge or kids. There was a note on the table. After a night of too much drink, I forgot to set my alarm. I won't wake you, she said with a snark, clearly mad. Good, I thought. Easier to keep my distance. I called my work, said I was sick and went off to grab a scary video from the motel. On my way back, George rang. He said our case was moving fast now. The guy ready to spill about the $5,000 bribe was going to secretly record chats. The sneaky moves Perez and his crew were pulling got spotted and a report was sent up to the higher-ups. Soon, the military police might swoop into Perez's places, checking his office, motel, and home. They'd dig into his computers, so I had to make sure my tracks were clear. George thought the raid might kick off in 10 days and hoped I'd wait to talk to Marge till then. Then he dropped a big surprise. Marge was now a suspect. My first thought was no way, Marge wouldn't steal. But then, didn't I also think Marge wouldn't cheat? We agreed to catch up the next day. I got home and pulled up the motel and house data. I started watching Wednesday's footage until about 12:30, then stopped. I skimmed his emails next, spotting 2 other sellers likely bribing Perez. I sent those to George. Some emails were from women, setting up times to meet. I made a note. Perez would be too busy to see me snooping, but then I had to face it. I couldn't delay watching the video with Marge any longer. I fast-forwarded until he opened the door, and there she was, my wife, stepping in. I paused the video, sitting there, feeling empty, sick, broken, unhappy, and angry. I felt lots of things, some I couldn't even name. So I hit play and saw them hug and kiss deeply, except she asked him to not be so rough. They didn't talk much as they took off each other's clothes and moved to the bed, touching while I cried. I saw him touch her, and what hit me hard was seeing her enjoy it, doing things she used to do with me. I skipped forward until I saw her get on the bed. She was ready for another man. That Thursday night was quiet. The kids weren't home. Marge and I did our things, barely talking. After everyone slept, I changed the data card in her car and took a look. I had to see the card data, guessing she talked to Ashley on her way to work. Marge wouldn't call on the house phone because I was sleeping off a hangover and not in the kitchen because the kids might hear. And yes, Ashley had called asking how it went. Marge said it was okay with Will. I made him less rough so I'm not hurting today. Just feel a bit used. He's still too harsh. Makes me do stuff I don't want. But it was okay, she said. Quiet? Ashley asked. But what about David? He either finished too quickly or couldn't start, right? Marge sighed deeply. No, he didn't come. Went out, drank with a friend. Came home too late, drunk, and just crashed. Didn't say a word to me. What did you do? What could I? I was so mad while he just snored away. In the morning, I turned off his alarm, left a sharp note, and left. Ashley said, you know, sometimes it's just bad timing. But Marge cried out again. No, I hinted at wanting him last night. In the morning, I even said I planned to tire him out that night. He left for work, not saying a word, not even a goodbye. Ashley wondered if he was on to something or just being weird. But Marge was sure he had no clue. She was only with Will when David was away. She thought David was just mad because they weren't being close as much. And now he was giving her the silent treatment as payback. That seems a bit far-fetched, Ashley said. But Marge felt sure about it. She thought last night was her chance with David after so long. But he shut her down. And she really wanted both of them despite the pain. She was set on giving David the cold shoulder for a while. Ashley half laughed. Marge, it's your own wish to have them both, not his fault. Let it drop for now. She pointed out that David probably felt left out not being close. And Marge needed to fix that before dreaming about having both men. Marge said that's what she was aiming for, more time with David. But you made it about what you wanted, not what he needed, Ashley pointed out. You're right, now what? Marge responded. Just drop it, advised Ashley. Maybe he didn't mean to ignore you on purpose. Just think he didn't and let it slide. David might come around tonight. Marge hoped she had somehow made Ashley mad enough to leave her alone. But then Ashley called again. Why do you let Will make you do things you don't want? Ashley asked. Marge said Will was just very pushy. She managed to make him a bit gentler, but he's still rough around the edges. Like what does he make you do? Ashley pressed. Just one thing, Marge replied, a bit unsure. Yesterday, he made me kneel on the floor, my head back against the bed. Then he pushed his stuff into my mouth and moved fast. But he did it so hard, it felt like I was hitting my own lips every time he moved. Being against the bed, I couldn't escape it. That's rough, Ashley said. He also enjoys dirty talk and wants me to say, well, very dirty things. Seems silly to me, but he likes it. Men, Ashley said. Yeah, Marge agreed. I think he thinks those adult movies are real. He wouldn't stop until I said in a super sexy voice, I love your bits. After I said it, it got better, weird. On Thursday, Marge tried to start something, but I didn't go for it. It was nearly 2 a.m. when I finally went to bed and she was asleep. Sorry, Ashley, you were wrong. I got up early Friday and went straight to work. I left around 3, took the test kit with me, and went to the motel to get Thursday's and today's videos. Mary wasn't at the bar, but I grabbed a drink while waiting for the data. When I got home, I started transferring the files and then used the test kit on Marge's underwear. It tested positive, but that didn't change things. I had enough time to watch the new videos and was shocked again. In the first video, a young woman in a military uniform entered his room. She appeared young, possibly around 20 or 21, and petite. They shared some wine. Eventually, he initiated more intimate contact, touching her as they kissed and embraced. He began to undress her, but she soon hesitated, expressing her discomfort and stating that she didn't want things to proceed further. She attempted to leave, but he forcibly kept her there, escalating the situation. She resisted trying to escape, but he restrained her and became aggressive. I couldn't watch. I shut the file and ran to throw up. When I felt a bit better, I made a copy for George to see. Then I opened another file. This time Mary came in, he gave her cash, and they hooked up. She had said she was a hooker, but it was still odd to see. 2 more files caught my eye, both new from today. In one, he called Marge, asking her to come over. She laughed but said yes. In the last one, Marge came, they kissed, and she did stuff. Then she left like it was nothing. I saved these for George, too. I called George and said we needed to meet fast. He suggested coming to my place, but it was risky. We met at his workplace. I got there quickly, gave him the drive, and told him, the first one's the worst. Sorry you have to see it. I'll wait in my car. After a long while, George came out and joined me. He said, I'll find out who she is, and Perez will regret it. Then he added, let's go. Not for drinks, but for answers. For Mary. Mary was at the bar, but not working. When she saw us, she waved to the bartender for 2 gin and tonics. After he put them down for us, she hugged George, gave my hand a squeeze, and said, Hi, guys. Always good to see you, too. Without thinking, I said, Hi, Mary. Nice to see you. George looked at her intently and asked, Mary, what's up? Her face fell, and she said, George, you got it right again. I got sick with bad diseases from CC. That's why I can't work at the bar. I'm sick and don't want to make anyone else sick. I'm done selling my body, and I'm done with school. I'm just going to get by without being a nurse or selling myself. George cut in fast. You're not done with school. Mary dropped her head and said, No, I can get by with this job if I don't save for school. Good enough for now. George got mad, took her arm, and said, No, it's not good enough. You dreamed of being a nurse that day in jail, and you've been working towards it every day. I'm glad you're done selling yourself, but I won't let you just give up. I said, We'll find another way, Mary. She looked at us, tears in her eyes, and said, I couldn't ask for better friends, but I can't, and won't ask you guys to help. That would not be right. George and I gave each other a look. I said, Fine, you're not asking, and you can't stop us, so we're not talking about it anymore. We laughed, and then I brought up something new. George, I asked, any jobs opening at the base? Before he could say anything, Mary got serious. Guys, she said, there are 2 things you need to know. First, I know you guys were keeping an eye on Will Perez. I can see his room door through the bar's front windows, and I hope you catch him soon. George nodded, stone-faced. The first thing I did after finding out I got sick from him was to make him sick, too. My jaw hit the floor. Why? She looked at me sternly, because I wanted to make him feel bad. In a dark voice, George asked Mary, What did he do to you? Nothing to me, but he hurt a young woman. No, a young girl. I saw her walking funny out of his place when I was on my way to work. She could hardly stand. I tried to help her. She was crying. Her face was hurt and red. Her dress was ripped. She only let me walk her to her car. Then she drove off. Mary then told George, she might have been 20, and she wore a suit that showed she was in the Air National Guard. She's one of your people. I know, George said. I'll find her and make sure she gets help, and he will wish he never did what he did. Looking at me, he said, and I think David has some secret plans he hasn't shared yet. We can talk. I went to sleep close to midnight. Marge was already asleep, and now George knew all about what I was thinking. He also wanted to see if Mary could work in base buying stuff. They needed to fill some jobs soon. Saturday was quiet. Marge and I didn't talk much. We watched a movie as usual, but when I came with drinks, Marge sat in the middle of the couch with Tom and Julia by her side. Normally Marge and I sit together, and the kids sit next to us on the couch. I took a chair, seeing Tom and Julia looking puzzled while Marge seemed proud. Marge went to bed early. I used the time to check the voice recorders, but found nothing. She got an email from Perez saying thanks for Friday and that he couldn't wait for next Wednesday. We didn't really talk on Sunday. We just acted like everything was normal. I went to sleep a bit before Marge and saw she still went to change in the bathroom. She had to know her lies and cheating were hurting us badly. She slipped into bed quietly, but with a bit of a jerk, making sure I felt it. I kept quiet when she turned her back to me right away. That was okay by me. She could keep her sickness. On Monday, George gave me a call. He said they found the lady who was attacked. She ended up at a local hospital, and after some chat she was ready to speak out against Perez. He also told me they were going to storm in next Monday morning. He hoped I could steer clear of Marge this week to avoid any slip-ups with Perez. I agreed and said I'd tell Marge I would be out from Wednesday to Sunday, but in truth, I'd book a room at the motel and work out the plan I told him about. Next, I rang up Kevin at the motel and got the room right above Perez's for 5 days. At dinner on Monday, I told Marge and the kids about my supposed trip from Wednesday to Sunday. Julia and Tom were bummed. Marge didn't show much of anything. Tuesday, Marge and I hardly spoke. After everyone went to sleep, I packed a bag and placed it in my car. I checked the voice records. One chat caught my ear. It was Marge talking to Ashley this morning. Marge said, "Ashley, that jerk is messing up." Will or David? Ashley sounded confused. David? Talking to Ashley this morning. Marge said, "Ashley, that jerk is messing up." Will or David? Ashley sounded mixed up. David? We've been off. We're just not talking for days. He said last night he's going away Wednesday morning and won't be back till Sunday, so I won't get to have fun with both on the same day. Ugh, Ashley went. Marge, you need to sort things with your husband before dreaming the big dreams. This is dragging on too long. Yeah, Marge went on. If only David would stop being so annoying. I'd make his day. I don't get why he makes things hard. Great, so she's messing around and I'm the tough one, I thought. I saved the file anyway. I went to work early on Wednesday but left at noon to check into the hotel. I took the video equipment from my car and set it up with 2 laptops in the room for the next few days. This way I could watch the live feed and use the internet at the same time. Then I waited until about 1. Through the window, I saw Marge arrive and walk to her room. She had her laptop with her and turned on the live feed. I saw her hug and kiss Perez. She said she needed to check her email first and then started her laptop and hooked it up to the hotel's Wi-Fi. They both were busy on their computers for about 10 minutes. As soon as she said she was done, he lifted her up and carried her to the bed. As he put her down, he said, "I need to be with you, baby." She pulled him closer for a kiss and said, "And I need you to be with me." I turned the volume down and logged into Perez's computer from afar. And from his, I got into Marge's laptop while they took off their clothes. Then I got busy. They were together, rough and intense, for nearly 2 hours. Then they slept, holding each other. They woke up around 5 p.m., which left me 4 hours to snoop through their computers. When they began to stir, I logged out but kept watching. She woke first, glanced around, saw the clock, then him. She nudged him awake, saying, "Will, wake up, honey." We dozed off. He woke with a grunt and lay back. He asked, "What time is it?" "A bit past 5. I gotta go," she said. "Me too," he replied. "Promised my wife a dinner out." She lightly hit him. "Hey, I don't want to hear about that. I hear too much about your husband and kids." "Don't forget," he said as he began to get up. She held him back. "Honey, sorry I said that. I do love my life. Just sometimes I'm jealous thinking of you with your wife." "I know, baby, what we're doing is tough for us," he said. "I'm happy you haven't been with your husband lately. I like thinking your body is just for me," she said back. "It's not yours. I choose to share it with you. But I love my man, and I need to make things right with him. I've been ignoring him for weeks. I do love being with you. Please know you make me feel so good. But I can't mess up my marriage, he stepped back and said. Hey, I can't let my wife find out either. As he stood up, he said, Man, my shoulders hurt a lot. She was shocked and said, Will, I'm sorry I scratched you. I really am. He went to see his scratches in the mirror. Man, you really got me good, he said. I'm so sorry, she cried, getting out of bed, then cried out in pain as she stood. Oh, I'm sorry, she touched her sore spot and screamed. You jerk, you said you'd be nice. Then they had a bit of a tiff and got dressed. Both were quiet. As they got to the door, he pulled her for a deep kiss, saying, I really do love you, baby, but we gotta be careful. They left quietly without holding hands. I watched her walk to her car and leave. I stayed in the room, knowing she wouldn't come back for a while. My first goal was done. Now for the hard part, waiting for next Monday. Until then, I could do more snooping on them. On Thursday, she called the hotel guy, booking the same room for 1 p.m., and then left for work. Friday, I stayed away from the house. As I walked out, I told Marge I'd be away till Sunday. She kissed me, saying, I can't wait for you to be back. The kids hugged me, too. I got to the hotel, hoping to find more juicy stuff. I spent Saturday looking for emails, messages, phone calls, anything that might give me a new lead. Nothing new, just a few chats between Marge and Ashley. Sunday, the same. I left on Sunday night, hoping everything would go smoothly on Monday. Monday morning, I got up early. I made breakfast and told Marge I'd be back home later. She said okay, and after a quick kiss, left for work. I called George, telling him we needed to get everything set. He agreed, and we went straight to work. He agreed, and we went straight to work. At the base, I was with George in his office when he got a call. The raid was happening. In about 30 minutes, we saw soldiers rush into Perez's place. He was caught red-handed. In his office, they found forged documents and boxes of goods ready to be shipped. They also found proof he was paying off the guy who was telling him about the other sellers. Perez was arrested, and it was all over the news. The military police coordinated with local law enforcement and the FBI to ensure the operation went smoothly. Perez's office was a hub of illegal activity. Computers were seized, revealing a treasure trove of incriminating emails, financial records, and communications with his accomplices. The raid extended to the motel room, where hidden cameras and microphones provided undeniable evidence of his illicit meetings and bribery transactions. The fallout from Perez's arrest was immediate and severe. News outlets covered the story extensively, detailing his fraudulent activities and the corruption that had infiltrated the Air National Guard base. His arrest sent shockwaves through the community, leading to several internal investigations and a thorough review of procurement processes to prevent future abuses. As Perez's case unfolded in court, more details emerged about his criminal activities. Witnesses, including the young woman he had assaulted, testified against him. The evidence was overwhelming, and the jury swiftly convicted him on multiple counts of fraud, bribery, and assault. Perez was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. His name became synonymous with corruption, and he was stripped of all honors and titles associated with his career. Meanwhile, I had to confront Marge about everything. When she arrived home, I was waiting for her in the living room. She looked surprised to see me there so early. "David, what's going on?" she asked, sensing the tension in the air. "Sit down, Marge. We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She sat down slowly, her eyes filled with confusion and fear. "What is it?" "I know about Perez. I know everything," I said, looking directly into her eyes. Her face went pale, and she seemed to shrink in her seat. "David, I don't. I saw the videos, I read the emails, I heard the phone calls. There's nothing you can say that will change what you've done. I interrupted, my voice shaking with anger and pain. Marge broke down, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, David. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you. I was just so lost and confused. Please, you have to believe me. I took a deep breath, fighting back my own tears. Marge, it's too late for apologies. You broke our trust, and there's no going back from that. I want a divorce. She sobbed harder, burying her face in her hands. Please, don't do this. We can work through this. I can change. But I had made up my mind. It's over, Marge. I can't live like this. We need to think about the kids and what's best for them. We need to move on. After watching the videos of Marge with Perez, I decided to send the evidence, including her underwear, to a clinic for testing. The results were shocking. The clinic found DNA from 5 different men, and Marge had contracted an STD. When I informed Marge about this, she was devastated. She went to the clinic and spent a fortune on treatment. I also got tested and, thankfully, was free of any STDs. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and emotional turmoil. We agreed on joint custody of Julia and Tom, ensuring they would spend equal time with both of us. We sold our house, splitting the proceeds evenly, and divided our savings and possessions fairly. Marge moved into a small apartment nearby, while I found a new home for the kids and me. The divorce process was painful and drawn out. We had to attend mediation sessions to work out the details of the custody arrangement and the division of assets. Marge agreed to attend therapy, and I did the same, hoping to cope with the emotional fallout. We both wanted what was best for Julia and Tom, but the road ahead was anything but easy. Julia and Tom were understandably devastated by the news. We sat them down together and explained what was happening, assuring them that we both loved them and that none of this was their fault. They were shocked and hurt, but we promised to make the transition as smooth as possible. Marge struggled with guilt and regret. She moved into a small apartment nearby and focused on repairing her relationship with the kids. She attended therapy to work through her issues and sought to rebuild her life. We maintained a cordial relationship for the sake of the children, attending school events together and ensuring they felt supported by both parents. Life after the divorce was challenging, but it also brought new opportunities. I took some time off work to focus on my mental health and to be there for Julia and Tom. We started new traditions and spent more time together, creating positive memories to counterbalance the pain of the past. I reconnected with old friends and slowly began to open up to the idea of dating again. George remained a steadfast friend, offering support and encouragement. His relationship with Mary deepened and they became a significant part of my support network. Mary thrived in her nursing course, finding a new sense of purpose and direction in her life. With George's help, she also secured a job at the base, which provided her with stability and a sense of belonging. One evening, about a month after Marge left, I sat down with Julia and Tom for a heart-to-heart talk. I know things have been tough. I began looking at my children, but we have each other and we can get through this together. Julia nodded, her eyes filled with determination. We will, Dad. We'll be okay. Tom looked up from his game, a rare moment of vulnerability in his eyes. Yeah, Dad, we're a team. I smiled, feeling a surge of pride and love for my kids. That's right, we're a team. Over time, I found a new rhythm in my life. I focused on my work and being the best father I could be. I even started dating again, cautiously at first, but with a growing sense of optimism about the future. The support of friends like George and Mary made a significant difference, helping me to heal and move forward. Marge continued to work on herself and her relationship with the kids. She found a job that allowed her to be flexible with her time, ensuring she could be there for Julia and Tom. Our interactions became less strained and we both made an effort to co-parent effectively. The epilogue of my life was a testament to resilience and the power of new beginnings. The betrayal had cut deep, but it also paved the way for personal growth and a stronger bond with my children. We faced challenges together and emerged stronger for it. As the seasons changed, so did I. I learned to let go of the past and look forward to new beginnings. The end of my marriage was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope, growth, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Julia and Tom continued to thrive, excelling in their studies and finding their paths in life. Marge and I found a way to coexist peacefully, ensuring our children's well-being remained the priority. In the end, Perez's downfall served as a stark reminder of the consequences of greed and betrayal. His actions had far-reaching impacts, but justice was served. My journey, though painful, led to a place of healing and renewal. With the support of friends and family, I rebuilt my life, ready to embrace whatever the future held.